Johnson for sports. We make sports better.
All right, welcome back to the Boston Boys Sports Podcast. I again am one half of the Boston Boys Sports. I'm Eli Horrigan, and I'm here again today with my good friend Steve Fernandez. Steve, how you doing today?
Doing all right. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good myself, ready to talk some sports with you. We got a lot to go over today. We always want to mention that we are partnered with Joneson for Sports. Check them out on Twitter, check them out on Instagram, also on YouTube. Joneson for Sports. We make sports better. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and we have a great show for you today, including our Monday overreaction now, our 5-5 NFL draft overrated, underrated edition. Playoff talk. We got Bruins and Celtics going on, and we will answer questions from you, the fans. And I will also be asking Steve some questions at the end of this show for some of his predictions. And Steve, why don't we go ahead, jump in with the Monday overreaction? You want to go first?
Yeah, let's do that. I had a few different ideas on this one. I kept going back and forth, and then yesterday kind of changed my mind for this. So during the Miami Celtics game, I having a little interaction on Twitter, and I have to say my overreaction to my Twitter experience yesterday is that the Miami Heat fans might be the worst fans in sports, and the absolute most ridiculous.
I saw a lot of them. Actually, not only did I see a lot of them, I saw that there was a lot of people who were looking at these. You want to give us some examples of what happened?
Yeah, just trying to have a basic conversation about the series, how it's going to go, the fact that Jimmy Butler's not playing. And I don't know why, but a lot of Miami fans, they start talking about how LeBron James played and how what he did to the Celtics. So it forced me, of course, to defend that and to remind them that LeBron had to go there. His words, because he had to, try to compete with P.S. and Allen and Garnett. And then it got to me just joking around with them about the fact that their arena is always empty at the start of the game and they show up in the second or third quarter. That was, oh my, like I couldn't keep up with the notifications on Twitter. You don't understand. There's traffic. Well, I lived on Cape Cod. I lived in Boston. We had traffic. I just left early. I didn't know we were the only smart ones who knew to leave early if you knew there was traffic to get somewhere.
Now,
so I asked, go ahead.
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong. LeBron plays for Miami right now, or?
I'm pretty sure he played for a couple teams since he played for Miami, and that was a while ago. But apparently, when you have a guy named Playoff Jimmy and he's never won a title, you kind of have to go back to the last time you actually won a title. So that was their thing.
You put up a tweet.
It got crazy.
Sorry, you put up a tweet too. Playoff Jimmy as the Miami Heat faithful. Well, I guess not faithful. Miami Heat kind of fans. His numbers are worse than Jason Tatum's, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, their playoff games played isn't that different. I think Jimmy Butler's like 20 or 25 more. Yeah, every single stat. I mean, you're talking points, rebounds, assists. Jason Tatum covers Jimmy Butler. So I mean, it's weird to me to have that. Like I said, I mean, I said it on Twitter. Mr. October is Mr. October because he performed in October, but also because he has 5 titles. How can your nickname be Playoff Jimmy and you've never won a title? It just doesn't make sense.
And not only that, and he's dragged that Heat team to the finals, but I mean, they've been pretty outperformed in the finals too. So I mean, you got Big Shot Chauncey, which is stolen from Big Shot Rob. These are guys who hit massive shots in playoff games and have won titles. I don't think you could be dubbed anything Big Shot playoff this if you don't have the rings to go with it. So I completely agree with you. I saw a lot of those things, and I myself got a little involved with it and wrote, maybe if Miami after a loss, they want to talk about how good LeBron was because that's all they have. So maybe if the Heat win, we'll start talking Bill Russell, 11 championships, 8 in a row. So we can fit in with them, but we're actual sports fans. So let's jump in my overreaction. And I've been avoiding this one. You were an athlete. I was an athlete myself way back in the day. And I don't want to jinx this. And we know how superstitious athletes can be, but Kutter Crawford has benefited from Andrew Bailey, the new pitching coach. it's an extremely small sample size, and I understand that. But if you go to, since Bailey's been in Boston as a pitching coach since before, from 2021 to 2023, Cutter Crawford was 9-15, 4.75 ERA, 214 strikeouts, 67 walks, and he had a 1.25 whip. In 2024, he's 1-0, not because of him, because of the team, obviously, but he's 1-0 with a 0.66 ERA, 30 Ks, 11 walks, and a 0.99 whip. I have been continuing to say, like, I don't believe in Cutter Crawford. It's a small sample size. We're still in April, but I'm really impressed with his play.
Yeah, I like that one. I know obviously it's a small sample size, but going to what Andrew Bailey said in the preseason in spring training,
Yeah,
about how he had basic statistics he had broken down that he wanted his pitchers to go for, and it was 5 innings pitched or more. It was the first pitch strikes, and Crawford's kind of fit into everything that Bailey said he was going to go out to do. So I take a little bit of positive from that because it's actually something that was stated they were going to shoot for, and he's reaching those goals at this point.
yeah.
So I think that kind of amps it up a little bit as well. Yes.
And I hate the analytics part of baseball now because I wrote about this and I've probably talked about it a number of times too. It's like, I'm so sick of seeing pitchers go 5 innings. Like, you're never going to see Nolan Ryan anymore, a guy who's in his 40s pitching complete games, like Pedro, Greg Maddux, these greats that we watch as kids. It's like the other day, Tanner Houck threw a 9 inning shutout, and I was like floored. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. So normally we like to jump right into our 5-5, but because this was my overreaction, they were 4-3 last week, and I've been saying just win weeks. And that's what they've been doing. They've been eking out weeks. So 4-3 last week. They're 13-10 overall, which is third place in the AL East. They have the best ERA in baseball. They have the second most saves. Tristan Casas is finding his power. It looks like he had 3 home runs last week. My guy, which I said before the season, Wilyer Abreu, I thought was going to have a really good campaign. His batting average jumped from 111 to 280 this week. He had another 3 hits yesterday. They swept the Pirates. Jarren Duran, Connor Wong, they're seeing the ball well. I know you don't believe like I believe, but at least give me this little bit. It's a good start. It's not strong, but it's better than you might have expected.
Yeah, if you were to tell me 13-10 after 23 games, I would say I'll take a 100%. Especially if you were to tell me the injuries that they were going to have to go through and still be at 13-10. One of the positives that you get from this is you get to see the young guys. I mean, we complain that they didn't spend money. The other day they had an $8.8 million roster.
Yeah.
But you're having the ability to see the young guys actually play, and they're performing, that'll get fans to watch. The fan that said, forget this team, they're not putting money into it, I'm not putting my attention into it.
Yeah.
This will get people to watch as the young guys' performance. So yeah, I'm not gonna say 90 wins, but at least it's an enjoyable product because you get to see the young guys get out there.
Well, when they do hit 90 wins, I will gladly welcome you onto my bandwagon, because I don't think there's a person on the planet besides me who said 90. I haven't heard that from anyone else. I was, like I said, I was on a baseball kick that night and I just couldn't believe it. And yeah, I think you're right. We're getting to see these young guys. The Red Sox, I wrote in my blog last night, it's like as soon as I'm ready to throw in the white flag and be like, I don't know. It's like, then Tanner Houck goes and pitches a complete game shutout. And it's like, all right, I'm back. We're back to 90. Yep. So I think that's going to be my final thought on the Red Sox. I think just we have too much to get through with our 5-5, and then the playoffs are here. We have all summer to really talk about the Red Sox, but I do want to say that they're 13-10. And one other thing I will say, my wife and I, we went down to the Fenway area last weekend, and I know they're not investing in the team, but the area down there is really fun. They have a lot going on. So, I mean, if they could field a team, and maybe these young guys are, like, what a great experience it is down in the Fenway area. So that's all I'll say with that, because I do want to jump into our 5-5, because this is it's not only one of my favorites to do because we do the research, a lot of people, that's where I get a lot of responses from people that I see day to day. They love the 5 and 5. So this is our 5 and 5 NFL draft edition because this Thursday, the NFL draft is upon us. So we wanted to go deep dive into old NFL drafts and just go through some underrated and overrated. And this isn't talking about guys who are busts, or this is simply what they were predicted as, where they went, and that's how we went through it. So 5 and 5, underrated first, as always. Steve, who's your first underrated?
I'm gonna go with an easy one, and it's Drew Brees.
Okay, yeah.
He was basically a first round pick. I think he was drafted in the second round, but it was 32 overall because somebody lost their first round of that year. But everything, the draft profile, the scouting reports are exactly what you would think. Too short, sidearms too much, can't see over the offensive line. And obviously the guy comes into the league, has the injury, gets through that. He throws for 80,000 yards. We all know the numbers, 571 touchdowns. Just an absolute freak. People knock him for only one Super Bowl, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it was a tough NFL. There was a lot of guys in the league at that time winning Super Bowls, especially one around here. So,
and just to keep going with Drew Brees, right? He was looked until he got to the Saints, right? You're 100% right. He was completely underrated. He came out of Purdue, right?
yeah.
So he's a
Boilermaker.
Boilermaker. Yeah, he's a Boilermaker. And he comes out, no one wants him. He goes last in the first round, right? And then they say, we're going to take Philip Rivers. We don't want you here. And then the Miami Dolphins have the chance to sign him, and they signed Dante Culpepper, who was completely, like, when you talk about product of the system, he had Randy Moss, which completely inflated his numbers. And then Drew Brees kind of like, the Saints are like, I guess we'll take you. And they go on to have, they were the eights when we were kids, and then they go on to be really, really good for years. Could you imagine if the Dolphins got Brees and we had Brees and Brady in the AFC East for like 15 years, how good that would have been?
That would have been unbelievable. And I'm sure people are going to argue, Drew Brees he was kind of a product of the turf, the dome, the perfect situation. So that might be the attack, but I think he would have been fine in Miami. I think that would have been a lot of fun to watch.
I mean, talk about good weather all the time too, until you have to travel to New England and New York in December, if you're going to Buffalo or wherever, but I don't think it really would have mattered. I mean, Drew Brees was Drew Brees. He was just a great quarterback, and he was overlooked. And this is some things that are wrong with the NFL draft, right? That, it's not a perfect system. This is why we get to do this segment. My first underrated was DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, he didn't have the best numbers at Ole Miss. He was hurt a lot, but in 2019, he's completely overlooked. I remember at one point, because we were working together at the time, and it was like, he went from being like a potential first overall pick, like he could have been top 10, to 'maybe the late end of the first to a second. He just kept dropping. He ends up going in round 2, number 64 overall. He's listed at 6'3", 228, and runs a 4.3 40 at the combine. And nobody wanted to touch him because his big knock was that he was a bad route runner. And that was why he dropped so far. And you saw so many, and N'Keal Harry, we talk about him every time because that's my biggest miss ever. But N'Keal Harry goes before him, who couldn't get separation in the Pac-12 against really bad cornerbacks. But DK Metcalf, it runs a 4.3 40, 6'3", 228, and they're like, we can't touch him. He's a bad route runner. That's insane to me that this is how we judge talent.
Yeah, some of the measurables that they use and actually put a lot of weight into, they're absolutely ridiculous. And I remember DK Metcalf because the name that we kept hearing at that time was David Boston.
Yeah.
Size is going to ruin him. He works out too much. That's going to ruin his speed. It's going to ruin his this, that, his abilities. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Because I love DK Metcalf at that time. Yeah. I think he would have been a great addition. We talked about that. But yeah, that one was crazy too.
Absolutely. All right, who do you got for number 2?
I'm going to stick with the receiver and go Antonio Brown.
As crazy as he is, he was that much better on the field. But go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking 6th round, 195th player taken that year. And it was all size, strength. There was one that he needs to work on his route running, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
If you ever watched Antonio Brown and understand, he was the best route runner in the NFL, in my opinion, for his normal period of time, if you will.
Yeah.
He was on
Before.
pace to touch Jerry Rice's records, which I don't believe he would have done conditioning and everything else. Jerry Rice, he did it so long it was different, but he was on pace to touch the receptions in the yardage as well at one point in his career. Um, yeah, just 195th overall. And I mean, he was
There,
just something special to watch.
yeah, there was a point in time where it was like he was like they would talk about it on Sports Center, they would talk about it on Sports Talk Show, they would talk about it everywhere. He was putting up Madden numbers. Like it
Yeah,
was almost like not real. You ever play Madden and you get to a point where you're too good at Madden and you're like, okay, this isn't even fun anymore because I'm winning. I'm on all Madden and I'm beating the computer 70 to 3. It's like, okay, I'm not having fun. That was like his like window. It's before Vontez Burfict scrambled his brain.
yeah.
Antonio Brown was putting up Madden like numbers, and it was like every week. I mean, if you had him, if you played fantasy football and you had him, it was like this guy's just scoring a ton for you. So I completely agree. I'm gonna go number 2 for me is quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I have a vivid memory of the Aaron Rodgers draft, him sitting in the green room, just like one team after the next passing on him. In 2005, for some of you young pups who are watching this show and you don't remember this, it was really like sad. Like, it was who's going one, Alex Smith or Aaron Rodgers, and San Francisco chooses Alex Smith, and then Rodgers just sits. And some of the things they said his hand size was too small. Um, an NFC scout was quoted as saying, he has a good chance to be a bust. And then an AFC scout called him a clone of Kyle Bowler and Joey Harrington. So
Wow.
he drops to 24th overall. He's still a first round pick, but I mean, could you imagine being the other 23 teams who passed on this guy who is he doesn't have the titles, which is why we don't talk about him as greatest of all time. But from an athletic standpoint, he's probably one of the top 5 greatest quarterbacks I ever watched play. And, they thought he was Joey Harrington, which I remember him as well.
Yep. Yep. I remember Joe Harrington. I 100%. I remember watching that, and it's funny because one of the shows yesterday did a look back at that, and they showed Aaron Rodgers spiked hair and his little Flavor Saver there in
Yeah.
2005,
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
and the camera right on his face the whole time.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the guy I was doing his stats for something the other day, and the guy's thrown, I think it's 475 touchdowns and 105 interceptions. Just
Which is
105.
That's crazy. That's like those are like
Yeah.
talk about not making mistakes. Like Chad Pennington was a guy who didn't make mistakes, but didn't have the arm talent to be like Aaron Rodgers didn't make mistakes, and he's elite as well as a thrower. He's
100%.
Pat Mahomes before Pat Mahomes. I mean, Pat Mahomes has more titles already, and Pat Mahomes is on the trajectory to be the greatest quarterback. If it stays like this, he's got to play for a lot longer. But that's who Aaron Rodgers was before Pat Mahomes was in the league.
Well, not to I'm just going to say this before I jump into my next one, but let's be honest. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is drafted into a system with Andy Reid like Pat Mahomes was,
Yeah,
he might have more titles. It might be a little bit different.
yeah, you might be right. All right, what do you got? Number 3.
I'm going to go Richard Sherman.
Okay, yeah,
He was taken in the 5th round, out of Stanford, number 154 overall. The scouts just said about him that he has too much hip stiffness. The guy he can be baited out of position in zone. Just crazy things. He's not explosive. Exactly. And these were the knocks on him. I mean, and we all know who he ended up being. Another one that might have been a little crazy at the end. But the best cover, I mean, it was him and Revis. He was nasty. He was nasty. I mean, he was a great cover corner.
I mean, if you take out the early Baltimore Ravens in 2000, that defense, like the Legion of Boom was one of the best defenses I ever watched play. They were so fun. Earl Thomas was nasty. I mean, they were so good, like top to bottom. Like it's exactly why Russell Wilson got paid in Denver. Like Denver can thank Richard. Actually, they probably not thanking him because they're not happy about it. But Denver is Richard Sherman's to blame for Russell Wilson getting paid in Denver. So I completely agree with you. My number 3 then, I don't want to cut you off. Do you have any more with Richard that you wanted to go over?
No.
All right, so
Now go right ahead.
my number three ended up being Des Bryant. And again, got another guy who goes 20 in 2010. He's actually same exact pick as Aaron Rodgers. He goes round one, 24 overall. But the scouts who looked at him, they said cornerbacks will stick with him due to his below average speed. He's slow off the snap. He doesn't run a full route tree. In his sophomore season, he had 87 receptions for 1,480 yards and 19 touchdowns. And scouts are saying that he can't get away from people. I mean, I know he's playing at Oklahoma State, but like I love doing this exercise because it was really fun reading stuff. And my next two are even better than Des Bryant. But like, do you remember just how much of a dog and how good Des Bryant was? Like, if you watched him play, that guy was he was massive, man. He was so good. He was a guy who every time Dallas was like, oh, they're going to pay him. It's like, dude, please, New England, go get Tom Brady, Des Bryant, and we might win 2 Super Bowls in 1 year. I mean, that's how good this guy was at one point, you know? But that's all I have on Des. I don't know if you want to add on or go to your next one.
No, I think that's a great one. I mean, I 100% agree. I'm going to go on to my next one because this one was a little bit older, so it was difficult to find his draft profile back in the day. But I think it's a really good one. Zach Thomas.
Oh my God, yeah. He's in the Hall of Fame now, right? Finally.
Yeah, last year I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And it's the same thing that I said for Drew Brees. I mean, he was undersized, 5'11", 228 pounds. They didn't think he could see over the defensive lineman. He wouldn't be able to process all this stuff. And then it was, oh, well, Miami drafted him because the special teams. He's going to be a special teamer. That's all he's going to be good for. And then look what he ended up doing. I mean, I loved watching him, Jason. I'm a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
But if you respect the game and love the game,
Sure.
watching him and Jason Teal, I hated them because they used to give problems, and especially in Miami. But you got to give Zach Thomas credit.
Oh, Zach Thomas was fantastic to watch. And, this guy didn't make my list, but like, that was like Teddy Bruschi too. Bruschi was too small to play middle linebacker. Like, too small is not, it's who you like. Allen Iverson. I know it's crossing sports, but like Allen Iverson was a dog. He was so, I almost swore. He was so good.
It was so fun.
He was so fun. He was so good. Like Zach Thomas was so fun to watch. And like you said, if you respect the game, it's just talent that you're watching out there on the field. I hated the Dolphins, but those guys like Jason Taylor was so good too. But that's a great one. My number 4. My last two, I'll say, are my favorite underrated ones I did. My fourth one is Davante Adams. And Davante Adams he was in 2014. He's round 2, pick 53. In his final year at Fresno State, he caught 131 balls, 1,719 yards, and 24 touchdowns. And NFL scouts dubbed him a poor man's Michael Crabtree. And they said his production was inflated from the scheme and that he lacked functional playing strength. He caught 131 balls for 1,700 yards. And they called him a poor man's Michael Crabtree. I know he's at Fresno State, but it doesn't matter. Like, he's still playing college football and putting up outrageous numbers. And 52 teams passed on that. Like, it just blows my mind that you see him come into the league and he's fantastic. Like, how you're an NFL scout. How do you miss that?
We see it all the time. And you and I going
crazy.
over, I mean, I'm searching for these underrated, overrated. I mean, there were many that I saw, and I picked my favorite ones that I remember specifically.
Yeah.
The scouting reports and stuff like that. And those are the ones that I went with. But it's embarrassing. I don't know how some of these people keep their jobs in situations like this.
It is, because I just like look at, and I know like when they look at it, they're like, oh, he put up those numbers. I'm sure the thought process in the draft room is like, he put up good numbers, but it was Fresno State, because I myself am guilty of that. It's like, not that he's great, but Bailey Zappi, he's like, oh, he broke all kinds of records at Western Kentucky. I'm like, yeah, Western Kentucky. Like, he's 5'11", and he's not going to do anything in the league. And he's by no means is he bad, because he's closer to Tom Brady than I am to Bailey Zappi. But it's like, there's some guys where the bias comes in with a wide receiver, a guy who catches 131 balls. You're telling me defenses in Fresno State's division aren't keying in on Devontae Adams and double teaming him, and he's still catching 131 balls, coincidentally from Derek Carr. But I mean, I don't know how you miss on a receiver who catches 131 balls. That's all I'm trying to say.
I get it. I 100% agree.
All right, who do you got at number 5?
It's MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew.
Oh yeah, man, he was great in Jacksonville. You are a Jags fan, huh?
Apparently, I am. I'm huge. I should really
Is
start
David
thinking about
Garrett on
this.
your list too?
I thought about it. No, I'm just joking. So yeah, MJD second round, 60th pick. Scouting reports on him were again size.
Yeah.
5'8". One scout said he's 5'8", but he looks smaller. That his size is a problem for durability in college, which is going to continue in the NFL, and that he's going to be a third down back, and that's all he can be, or a special teamer. And I mean, the guy comes in, he's got two seasons where he touched the ball. He had 300 carries. Another season where it was 299. The guy had 8,100 yards rushing for his career, 68 touchdowns. Could catch out of the backfield. Another fun guy to watch, and his size made it that much better to watch him too, because you knew this guy's shorter than everybody on the field, and he's got hot. I mean, the kid was just he went.
He was a little wrecking ball, man. He was always on the field, and he was real frustrating for defenses to try to tackle because there is something to be said for a guy who's shorter when you're a defender, if especially, you know, the big meat up front, you know, the offensive line and defensive line are fighting for position, and you're a linebacker trying to see a guy who's 5'9", you know what I mean? And with his speed, you know, and I don't think he had the greatest foot speed, but I think he was quick, and he would blow through a line, and before you know it, he's gone. So yeah, I mean, that's a really great one. And it's great too, because it's like, oh, he's too small. Oh, he was really, well, he did pretty well for himself in the NFL. So
exactly. And if you look at him, I mean, his legs were bigger than his torso. The guy, I mean, he was strong as anything too. He was a little wrecking ball, like you said. It was perfect use.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number 5, I saved Justin Jefferson for last. Anyone who has watched the NFL the past few seasons, he's a monster. He was a monster at LSU. He caught 111 receptions, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. And then he ends up going 22nd overall in the 2020 draft behind Jalen Reagor, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy. Scouts believe that he was too complacent. These are their words, not mine. He's too complacent to beat coverages with his athletic ability, and he was unable to separate from tight man coverage. And he's limited one-on-one to win a 50-50 ball. And his separation talent, they said, was average. And I think Kirk Cousins begs to differ on that one. I don't know. Do you remember this season when they were playing the Bills, the Vikings, and the final drive, they're trying to tie the game, and he throws it to Jefferson in like triple coverage, but it's zone. So there's like 5 guys around him, and he just makes the catch. But he can't win one-on-one 50-50 balls. 5-on-1 is easier. Like, how do you, like, LSU is a big school. He's playing with Jamar Chase, and he's got 111 receptions, and they still think like, he can't separate. Like, are you out of your mind?
I swear they just flip a coin. Heads, he's good. Tails, he's bad. And then we'll write it up however we have to write it up. And they just flip a coin on some of these guys. It's crazy.
But like Jalen Reagor went the spot before him. Like, what did they see in Jalen Reagor? Now, I didn't do a deep dive into Jalen Reagor's stats, but like, I'm really kind of curious now that I'm talking about it. Like, what did Jalen Reagor do in college that was like, that's far more impressive than Justin Jefferson at LSU?
I don't know, but I mean, I mean, luckily he's a Patriot now, so we get to enjoy his skills. But
perfect. Good.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, that does it for us for our 5 and 5 for the underrated. Let us know what you think about it. You know, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, everything. We'll talk about that at the end too, but make sure you comment on those. We'll jump right into the overrated, because they are just as fun. And, I'll start us off now. I'll go back to back here. Number 1 for me was Jadeveon Clowney. I really firmly believe that Clowney was built on one hit. In the 2014 NFL draft, he's round 1, pick 1. he's had a serviceable career. He's still in the league. But that whole career is built on that one hit in the backfield against Michigan, of course. He was a very inconsistent player in college. On draft day, I was watching the draft because that's what I was doing when I was doing all this research. Like, let's go back to the draft, see what they say. Mike Mayock on draft day when Clowney was picked says when Clowney woke up this morning, he was the most talented defensive lineman on the planet, and he compared him to Willie McGinnis. Now, never mind the fact that he was drafted by the Texans, who had J.J. Watt at the time. And this guy saying Clowney is the most talented defensive lineman on the planet. It's outrageous how they come up with this stuff for a guy who was completely inconsistent at South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm confused. I would never say somebody's the greatest defensive lineman on the planet and then compare him to Willie McGinnis either.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Okay.
Well, that's Mike Mayock for you. That's probably why he got fired everywhere he's been so far, including I think Las Vegas recently. So, who do you got or you could talk about it, or you can go to your number one.
No, I mean, not to agree with everything, but I agree. I mean, that hit on the back in Michigan was, I still YouTube that once in a while. It was that nasty. But I do believe, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But his stock rose to unbelievable heights for that after that one hit, and it to me at that time did not make sense at all.
No,
but I mean, I don't work in the league, so I guess that doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So for my first one, I'd love it, but if anybody's watching, anyway, my first one is Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, it's an easy one. And it's for the basic reasons. I mean, scouts had him, size is perfect, muscular, can make any throw, can this, that, and the other thing. And believe me, he had a couple decent seasons in Chicago. And Chicago is a difficult destination for a quarterback. We're talking about the only franchise who's never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards, as old as that franchise is. But once you throw in what he's done since then, he's kind of, Pittsburgh backup, all this other stuff. That's what he is. He's a backup.
Yeah.
And you throw in the fact that Patrick Mahomes went 8 picks later and Deshaun Watson went 10 picks later.
Yeah.
That's what does it all for me.
So I'm going to agree with you because I also had Drake May. I mean, sorry, I mean Mitchell Trubisky as well.
Freudian slip.
That was my fault. I also had him 2017 round 1, pick 2. The Bears traded up one spot. They traded 3 to 2. They also gave up their 3rd and 4th rounders and a 2018 3rd rounder. So all for a guy who he started one season in college at UNC. He went 8-5 as a starter at UNC. His losses were to Georgia, Virginia Tech, Duke, NC State, and Stanford. 6 of his 8 wins came against these powerhouses: Illinois, James Madison, Pitt, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and the Citadel. He was 10th in passing yards. Sorry. He was tied for 16th in passing touchdowns and 11th in passing efficiency. And he was compared to Matt Stafford on draft day. So I also had him. So we could actually go right to you for another one because you took him right out of my mouth.
I apologize.
No big deal.
I'll go Trent Richardson.
Okay, yeah, it's
going at number 3. I mean,
awful.
Sorry,
I was gonna say he's the reason like no running backs went in the first round, like the next 2 or 3 drafts, I think too.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think another running back had any kind of hype until Leonard Fournette probably after that. Give or take.
Was Fournette before Ezekiel Elliott?
It was so close. I'd have to.
I know because I actually wrote about this at one point, and when Richardson went, it was like 2 or 3 drafts went by where no one touched a running back till the 2nd round because of him. Like that's how bad he was in Cleveland.
Yeah, he was horrific. I mean, what did he play? I think he played 15 games his first season. His second season in Cleveland, he played 2 and then got traded to Indy immediately.
Yeah.
He played in Indy the next season. He played another 15 games, and then he was out of the league. That was it for him. And that was 2016, I believe it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you remember in college, I mean, he was a stud. He was nasty.
Yeah.
Yep. He was I mean, the comparisons for him were Adrian Peterson. That was basically the only comparison anybody would give him.
Yeah,
Size, height, strength, everything was Adrian Peterson. And then we
yeah,
saw it once he got to the league. It didn't pan out that way.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, he is the reason why like running backs. I'm actually confident because the way running backs are right now, a lot of people look at running backs like you don't need to draft one. You can get anyone off the shelf and run him into the ground, and then we'll pick the next guy. Like Trent Richardson, I think is directly responsible for that because that was the time. Like Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, certain guys will still go high. Saquon Barkley, but guys kind of look at like your college stats. You're a running back. It's like okay, well we're not gonna take you because we could take a guy in the third round, and if we can open holes. I mean, just this was our overrated about Emmett Smith, right? If you're on the right system,
Yep.
if you're at Denver, Lindis Gary, these guys are running for 1,000 yards anyway. So we'll do it with anyone as long as we have the right blockers in place. So completely agree with
Yep.
that one.